We often have expectations that are too high. We put too much on our plate. To prevent burnout, we need to practice, again, the self-awareness and self-advocacy. A burnout pandemic has been brewing for years. Any job can be stressful, and if we are not managing stress, anxiety, and other negative feelings created by our job, we'll experience burnout. Working too many hours can cause us to lose interest, motivation, which can also lead to burnout. Today, we're going to talk about actionable tools to help us recognize and prevent burnout so we can aspire to reach our career goals and life goals. Let's dive in. Hello, I'd like to welcome every self-healer looking for ways to recover from burnout. We live in this culture that value hard work over self-care. Many job settings don't do a good job with work-life balance. As a result, burnout is very common in our culture. I've personally gone through many jobs where I've had difficulties with the work-life balance, and I understand that how helpless you can feel about your career and your life. It's true that some positions can be highly demanding and we have to deal with toxic work environments. Being exposed to a right amount of stress can be healthy and motivating, whereas too much stress and too many demands from the job can lead to a toxic work environment. And this constant stress can damage our physical and mental health. A study found that chronic stress can kill brain cells and even reduce the size of the brain. Burnout is characterized by feeling unmotivated and helpless about the job. Untreated burnout can lead to detachment, depression, and even feeling like life is not worth living. Burnout doesn't happen immediately. It's a gradual process. So it's important to know that the signs of burnout. Some of these signs include feeling drained after a work day, lost motivation, body aches, sense of failure, and self-doubt, feeling cynical, procrastinating, and not completing your work assignments, feeling irritated with yourself around others, decreased satisfaction and sense of accomplishment. And again, this happens over time, so it's important to monitor the signs of burnout. If you don't deal with these early signs of burnout, eventually you have nothing left to give. And not at just work, burnout can also affect your social and family life. Many factors can contribute to burnout. A toxic work environment that doesn't value the employees can create burnout. Jobs that overly demanding, are monotonous, and unchallenging can also lead to burnout. So there are many factors to burnout. So it's important to see your own experience at your work and to see what kind of factors you want to take it into consideration. The first step here, so again, the key point is awareness. So I prepared some of the questions you can consider for your own burnout experiences. First question, are you working too many hours and taking on too many responsibilities? So it's important to see your capacity and how much you want to take in. So, some people say, I can work 40 hours, whereas some people will say, I can only work 20 hours a week. So it's important to see your capacity and what is too much, what is too little, what is right amount. Next question is, do you tend to have perfectionistic tendencies? So this applies to your career choices and work environment. Because some work assignments, we want to do them perfectly, whereas some other assignments, it's okay to do decently. But however, we try to be always perfect, and that can backfire and lead to burnout. So, because we want to see our self-negotiation skill. Are you trying to be always perfect, or sometimes you're okay with decent quality of work? Next question is, do you have pessimistic view of yourself? So this means, do you what you're struggling? Do you see something that lead to better outcomes, or do you feel hopeless and helpless about what you're doing? Because there is good amount of stress. because the stress that we're going through is worth it because we're gonna see great outcomes. But sometimes we're just going through it without seeing the great outcomes. So it's a very pessimistic. The last question is, are you feeling unmotivated or procrastinating with your projects? This one is related to the last question. When we don't see the result, when we don't see the great outcomes, of course we're not gonna have motivations. So I guess, how are you feeling about your work again? And do you trying to see the motivation in it or the passion in it? Or you don't see any points in it, so you avoid or procrastinate? Personally, these questions are helpful because it's not about pointing out the problems, like how do we pass that and see other side of the tunnel. Again, the first step is to be aware of what's happening. Then we can see, okay, what's the next step I want to take? The how we spend our downtime and how do we recover from daily stress, it's very important. It's a way to prevent burnout. And it's important to have sort of a social life, your personal life outside of work. This contributes to a healthy work-life balance. So making time for yourself to pursue a hobby that you really enjoy. Finding joy outside of your work environment can reduce stress and help alleviate burnout. So one thing that I like to do as a sort of a daily reminder for my self-care is exercise. Simply taking a walk or weightlifting or yoga can sort of release endorphin that reduce stress. So after lunch, I like to block at least 20 minutes to take a walk or do a little simple exercise. So what could be a way to block some time as a daily reminder for self-care? So leave a comment down below. Another step to alleviate burnout is to reevaluate your priorities. Remember, when you're experiencing burnout, it is a sign that something in your life is not working. If your job is very demanding, maybe you need to take steps to find more fulfilling job or find different ways to manage your work. It's important to have some strategies around your self-care and your priorities. So here's some actionable tools I like to suggest. The first tool is setting a SMART goal. It's an acronym for specific, meaningful, adaptive, realistic, and taking small steps. So if your position at your work is not a good fit for you and it's causing you to feel a lot of stress and burnout, it's important to see what other options that you have. To explore different options, we want to have some goals. We want to have some directions. The SMART goal is a strategy to picture each step you want to take. So S is specific. What specific actions will you take? So in order to explore different job options, would you like to block an hour to research on different jobs or network with others? What specific actions would you like to take? M is meaningful. What are your values? What's meaningful to you? Because it's a very personal experience. We want to see, okay, my current job is not meaningful. That means what can be different? So it's important to see the direction you want to take that's meaningful to you. Sometimes we let things happen situationally. Sometimes we accept the job that's near our home, but we don't like the job because out of convenience we take that job. So we want to see the meaning and significance of each step and each choice. A, adaptive, how this action adapt to your life. We don't want to make decision that's really out of our lifestyle. We want to see what's adaptive, what can you be flexible, and what can you change around your schedule. But that way we can slowly change and shift things, then eventually we'll get there, right? So in other words, how much change are you willing to make and be okay with that? Next one is R, realistic. Is this a realistic goal considering your life circumstances? So going back to A, adaptive, we want to be also realistic. How much can this really happen? To do a reality check, you can talk to someone who's going through that change, or maybe a step ahead of you. That way you can see how realistic this is, how much time you want to give in order to make that step or in order to make that change. So it's a food for thought, and you have to define what's realistic to you. Next step is T, the take small step. So in order to be realistic, we want to see what are the small steps you want to take and how slow or what's the pace you like to go with. We don't want to rush things because otherwise it's not going to be realistic, it's not going to be adaptive, it's not going to be meaningful, it's not going to be specific. So what pace you want to go about the change, that way you can build that stable foundation. Once you have a SMART goal ready, consider the cost of not taking the steps to avoid burnout. It may be painful to look at, but it's important to connect with what could cost you if you don't try to reach your goals of finding a new job or new opportunity. If you continue with the same position that's not a good fit for you, what's gonna happen? So ask yourself deeply, what will your life be like 1 year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now? You can journal about this process. Remember, burnout can lead to hopelessness and helplessness. And oftentimes we don't see the bright future. And your worth cost of taking steps towards all the possibilities and all the opportunities. And we want to stop making excuses. I know it's easier said than done. However, our mind naturally wants to stay in a comfort zone. And when we seek change, it's cranking out all the reasons why we cannot do it. Our mind says, no, I'm too busy. That's not important. That's not my priority. It's not worth this change. It's not going to happen, so on. If we just wait until our mind stops creating excuses, or when we see miraculously new opportunities, we'll never accomplish our goals. So we want to be active in the process of achieving goals and be okay with discomfort. When we make changes, it's not going to be a smooth sailing. We're going to experience stress. We're going to experience a lot of feelings. And that's the sign that we're changing something. And that is exciting and motivating. The last two I like to suggest is mindfulness and meditation. Practicing mindfulness and meditation is a way to be in the present moment and move past excuses. Then we can see what we can do in the present moment right now for our goals. Change can be scary, and mindfulness and daily meditation can be helpful for you to slow things down. That way we can see rationally, okay, this is stuff that I can do today. An example could be mindful breathing. When we are so caught up with doing this and that, we want to come back to our breath. That could be a foundation. Then we can prioritize different things. So taking some time to just focus on your breathing, then you can reflect and review your goals and progress. So remember, it's about awareness. Sometimes just being aware of what's happening with your breath, with your body, then we can reorganize our thoughts, our feelings. The key point here is mindfully managing your life obligation, your time. We often have expectations that are too high. We put too much on our plate. To prevent burnout, we need to practice, again, the self-awareness and self-advocacy. The actionable tools I share with you are not the answer. By using these tools, you can build a house, you can build a car, you can build a job, you can build whatever experience you want to have for your future. As a result, you will find the answer to the healthy lifestyle, healthy work-life balance. I hope that you find our time helpful and take good care of yourself and do your healing every day.